Okay, it's time. Let's grab a seat. If you don't want to be late for lunch, well, let's get him going. Hey, can you hear that? Okay, good. We're not doing a mic check. We're doing a earphone check. So I think we're good. If you need earphones, well, let us know. All right. Don't waste any time here. We'll get right back at it.
All right, we got our thirst taken care of, and so let's move on to the fossil record. Fossil record has been very important to evolution, and so we're going to take a little bit closer look at that and maybe a little bit different alternative to the fossil record, which y'all already have a glimpse of it from the first talk on what's going to go with that. I'm always asked about dinosaurs. Can we do that first? Yeah, let's take care of these dinosaurs right away. Who's this? Okay, not a problem with T-Rex. Everybody knows T-Rex. Dinosaurs were discovered in 1822. Did you know that? So if they were discovered in 1822, named in 1842, and that name dinosaur means terribly great lizard, you're not going to find the word dinosaur in the Bible because they weren't discovered until the 1800s. So you'll see words like dragon, sea serpent, something like that in the Bible. We find them all over the world. Prints of dinosaurs all over the world. Can y'all even see down in Antarctica? There's prints of dinosaurs, and way up in the Arctic region, there's prints of dinosaurs. Just find them all the time. When did they live? Well, supposedly, and I don't agree with their time chart, but supposedly the green area up here is where they lived. The Mesozoic era, that's where they lived from 250 million years ago to about 65 million years ago. And then supposedly 65 million years ago, a meteorite hit Mexico, a huge meteorite that left a mark, but it's very questionable down there. The science on it's very questionable. That's like a mile in diameter or something, huge meteor that destroyed a lot of animals on the earth is what they say. I'm not sure I agree with that because the evidence is just kind of spooky on all that. So that's where we're at with all of that. You know this one? Very good. You know your dinosaurs, Brachiosaurus. There it is compared to an elephant. They got pretty large, didn't they? They are huge. These dinosaurs are huge. It could be. This one is actually Argentinosaurus, but they may have renamed it. I don't know. I don't keep up with dinosaurs that well. I put it in here because it's the largest one ever found. So you can compare it there to the blue whale, which is the largest organism that they've found. So it's really close to that. So they get just really, really big. Okay, y'all know this one. Yeah, Stegosaurus. Yeah, there we go. Kyle Butts, who's in the church, he's with Apologetics Press. He has a book on dinosaurs, and I really like his book because he has pictures. That's where these pictures came from. But also, he tells you how to pronounce the words. And so I like to know how to pronounce all these dinosaur names that I have trouble pronouncing. Biblical references? Well, day 6 of creation. Same day man was made, he created the beast of the field. That would include dinosaurs. In Job 40, the behemoth, he eats grass like an ox. His strength is in his hips. His power is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. It's a pretty big tail if it's as big as a cedar. The sinews or tendons of his thighs are tightly knit. His bones are like beams of bronze. His ribs like bars of iron. He is first or chief of the ways of God. Only he who made him can bring near his sword. So I think that's a reference to dinosaurs. Nothing else. It doesn't fit any other organism we see in biology. The Leviathan in Job 41, you can't catch him with a hook. You can't kill him with a spear. When he raises up, the mighty are afraid. When he swims, the water boils with commotion. His underside is like sharp pieces of broken pottery that leave pointed marks in the mud. Flashes of light and smoke expel from his nostrils like steam coming out of a boiling pot. Sparks of fire shoot out of his mouth, and his eyes glows like the morning sun. He is too powerful and ferocious to be captured by man. Does that sound like a dinosaur to you? Sounds like a dragon, doesn't it? Yeah, it sounds like a dragon. Dragon, dinosaur, they all fit in the same category, is what I'm thinking. It's interesting, Job 40, it says, look now at the behemoth, which I made along with you. So they were made the same time, day 6 of creation. So it's really kind of fun. Words in the Bible are dragon, monster, serpent, sea monster. Psalm 74 talks about sea dragons. That may be a pliosaur. Isaiah 30, flying serpents. That may be a pterosaur. Isaiah 34, land dragons. So yeah, they're in the Bible, in history of the Bible. Besides that, there's pictographs, petroglyphs, figurines, burial stones, pottery in China. So there at the bottom, those figurines in Alcambara, they found 33,000 of them. And they found them in the 1930s and 1940s. Lots of figurines of these dinosaurs. Up there at the top is a National Bridges Monument. Does that look like a dinosaur to you guys? Somebody had to draw that picture a long time ago. And so man living with dinosaurs probably occurred before the flood. The Ica burial stones. Down in Ica, Peru, where the Inca Indians are, they buried their people with these burial stones. Every dinosaur we've ever found, the pictures are on these stones. So somehow people lived same time as dinosaurs and were able to draw those pictures of all of those. I've got one of those. This is an Ica burial stone. It's a fake one. The curator of the Museum of Natural History in Fort Worth is a member of the church. And he goes to Legacy Church in Fort Worth. That's the church that supports my daughter and her husband as missionaries in New Zealand. And he found out that I talk about dinosaurs. So he has an original burial stone. He went to Ica, Peru, and as a curator, he authenticized all of these rocks. And so they're authentic. According to him, they're authentic. And so he made me a copy. And it's got a picture of a hadrosaur. It's a hadrosaur. I know it's a hadrosaur because Sternberg in 1908 found a hadrosaur with its skin still on it. And there were circles on the skin. And this dinosaur here has circles on the skin. And it's also, his mouth of the dinosaur is on a person's arm. So there's a person on here too, and the dinosaur's eating him. So it's kind of interesting to see all of this. So do I pass this around in here? Yeah, let's pass it around. Y'all can look at it as we talk. I might get boring here in a minute, and y'all might rather look at that. So we'll do that. How many dinosaurs are there? Over 1,000. It increases 20 or 30 every year. You can see the picture of that one in 2023 was found in China. It's always interesting to me that when they show a new dinosaur, they color the bones that they find, and then the ones that are not colored, they infer from other dinosaurs that they have. And so I don't know if that's enough colored bones for you guys or not, but it makes me question a lot on what they do with all of those. The next one I mentioned there is Monosaurosaurus, found in the Sahara Desert. It was called the Holy Grail of dinosaurs. And that's a picture of it right there. It's called the Holy Grail because they were trying to find some kind of dinosaur link between the dinosaurs found in Africa and those found in Europe. And so that's the link. But do you see the colored ones, the blue ones and the purple ones? That's what they actually found. All of the others are inferred. So, yeah, the paleontology world makes me cringe a lot because I'm just not really sure that's what they found. This one is what really gets me is Spinosaurus. This is from National Geographic. They had a fold out of Spinosaurus. So this picture I took is a part of that fold out. And I want you to see what they did here. You'll notice there's some small print here and here and here. You can't see it. Well, this right here, I blew it up so you could read it. It's talking about the bones and the colors of the bones. If they're red, those were found in Morocco in 2008. So down here is a picture of Africa. And so there's the Morocco find right there. That's where they found the red bones. The brown bones are from sites all over Africa. And so can y'all see those black dots all over here? Those was where they found the brown bones. The yellow bones they found from sketches in Egypt. They didn't have the bones, but they had sketches that a paleontologist made of the bones from Egypt. And then the green ones are estimated, the gray ones are inferred. Can you do that? Can you take a whole bunch of bones all over Africa, put them together, and you now have a new dinosaur? Y'all see my point? I'm not sure you can do that. I'm just not. As far as I know, and I've been looking, I don't think they found the Spinosaur. I may be wrong on that, but a Spinosaurus. I don't think they found one. And so, is this really real or is it not? It makes me question. Do y'all ever do that? This one just makes me question on that. So what happened to them? Before the flood, the environment was different. Man lived a long time. Methuselah lived 969 years, so we know all that. So reptiles, as they live, they continue to grow. And so you and I, we reach a plateau. We don't grow anymore after age 23, but reptiles, they keep growing. And so before the flood, the climate was such where reptiles could grow and grow and grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Maybe higher carbon dioxide levels, that causes more plant growth. Maybe higher oxygen levels, that's linked to gigantism. And so before the flood, people could live longer, so could reptiles, they could get bigger. After the flood, possibly rapid changes in climate, drop in oxygen levels maybe, possibly violent storms, lightning after the flood, more forest fires, destroyed vegetation. May not have been enough food for the dinosaurs, especially during the Ice Age. We kind of think the Ice Age occurred about 200 years after the flood is when that occurred. Maybe 200 to 500, somewhere in there. Man may have hunted the dinosaur. When Noah got off the ark, that's when God said, you can eat animals. And so maybe man hunted them. Maybe there wasn't enough food and they hunted the dinosaurs. I don't know what happened to them after the flood. Whenever you find bones, they always suggest catastrophic entombment. You always find these bone beds out there. They're buried in debris flows. So it looks like catastrophic conditions there. Large dinosaur bone beds, bones are tightly packed together, mixed with other animals, so it looks like some kind of catastrophe had been occurring. Billions of dinosaur tracks, but you never find tracks of a dinosaur just wandering around. They're always like going in a straight line, trying to get away from something or heading somewhere is how you find them, which would indicate some kind of catastrophic or stressful conditions. They found swimming dinosaurs. They've even found dinosaurs stuck in mud, and they are stretching their bones trying to get out of the mud. And so a lot of indications of flood on that. This is what I want you to see about dinosaurs. They are finding soft tissue and proteins in dinosaur fossils. Now you got to remember, supposedly dinosaurs disappeared 65 million years ago. Shouldn't be any stretchy material. Shouldn't be any kind of proteins. That should all be gone. They can't last that long. So there you can see kind of a blood vessel there on the left. And what came out of that blood vessel is on the right. Looks like blood cells on the right is what they found. This is Mary Schweitzer back in 2007. She was the first one that published in a dinosaur fossil that you could find protein and stretchy material. They fired her at her university because you're not supposed to be able to do this. And they said, you have contaminated samples. And she got fired. Well, ever since then, we keep seeing more and more and more coming up. Here's what they found. You can see there on the left that elastic tissue. It's still real stretchy. There in the middle, it kind of has a fresh appearance to it. On the right, you can see regions of bones where the fiber structure is still intact. So you shouldn't find this on a dinosaur fossil. If they disappeared 65 million years ago, just shouldn't have it at all. Anderson and Armitage back in 2013, they found stretchy and pliable tissue in a Triceratops brow horn. Using an electron microscope, they located cells in the tissue. Protein breaks down quickly, especially in the environments that you find dinosaurs. They shouldn't have found that. They shouldn't have found that there. So it's just really interesting. The paleochronology group under Sattler, they did carbon-14 dating of all these dinosaurs in Texas, Alabama, Colorado, Montana, and they dated 22,000 to 39,000 years old. They were supposed to be gone 65 million years ago, but they didn't date that way. So that's just really kind of interesting. Sternberg, I told you about him. He found the hadrosaur that had the original skin on it. Shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been there in that particular fossil. Hadrosaur fossils have yielded soft tissue discoveries. And look at this. They found osteocytes. The word site or the suffix site means cell. They actually found cells, osteocytes, cartilage, proteins, and even DNA of dinosaurs. That's incredible. That's just incredible. This one is back in 2022, a duck-billed dinosaur. The skin was preserved, and it even had a basketball appearance on the skin. But it's interesting what they said in this article. They said, I think the specimen was covered quite quickly. Otherwise, it wouldn't be this well preserved. You can see some of its vertebrae and tendons, and once you get closer, you can see some of the scales, and the dark scaly skin has a basketball-like structure. So buried quickly? Can y'all think of a time where that might have happened? Yeah, I can too. Look at all these articles. One in Bone magazine or journal, one in Nature journal, one in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, one in Geology. Soft tissue, proteins. Shouldn't do that. Shouldn't be able to do that with dinosaurs. So that begs the question, how long ago did the dinosaurs live? I don't think it was 65 million years ago. Yeah. So just really makes me question. If that's a timetable I drew up there, you can see before the flood, there were 1,500 years, lots of time for dinosaurs to get big and roam the earth. Did Noah take dinosaurs on the ark? I probably think he did. It took two of every animal. And so he probably took young ones so that they could be on the ark there. When they disappeared, I have no clue. No clue when they disappeared. So does that answer your questions about dinosaurs a little bit? Kinda? Yeah. Y'all probably didn't have any. I like flood jokes. Do y'all like flood jokes? Somebody should have separated the rabbits on the ark. Yeah, there we go. Whose bright idea was it to place the animals alphabetically? Ants and ant eaters? Yeah, we're just kind of fun. Hey, Noah, do you want the good news or the bad news? Yeah. It's kind of fun. I like flood jokes. My kids were missionaries in China for 6 years, and my son-in-law said, you got to see this. Their language is one of the earliest languages, and y'all know they use pictograph for languages. And so look at there, the word create, you can see it's several images put together. It's several pictographs put together. And so create, the pictures are walk, talk, living, dust, man. Isn't that interesting? Man was made from the dust of the earth to walk and talk with God. Look, the word garden means dust, breath, enclosure, person. So reference to Adam and Eve in the garden. Boat is vessel, 8 people. How many were on the ark? 8 people on the ark, yeah. Flood is water, total, together, earth, 8. Isn't that interesting? So a lot of references to the Bible in the Chinese language. Okay, to the fossil record. We find fossils everywhere. They're in these sedimentary blankets that cover the earth. In many of the layers, we find fossils of animals, we find fossils of plants, there's a couple of them. It's a major evidence for evolution. Darwin said this, and it's really interesting. He said, I look at the geological record as a history of the world imperfectly kept. So Darwin looked at the fossils and said, something's missing here. He even saw those first organisms that appeared in the Cambrian time period. He came over to Canada, to the Burgess Shale, and saw all these different animals in the very first layer of fossils. And he said, they shouldn't be here. There should be a lot of intermediates leading up to these, but they're not there. So he says, the fossil record's kind of imperfectly kept. Give it another 100, 200 years, we'll find more fossils and put all the pieces together. Well, it's been 160 years, and guess what? There's nothing leading up to those first ones in the Cambrian time period. It's still imperfectly kept in his problem. That's why we call it Darwin's dilemma. It's still his dilemma today. When you look at the fossil record, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it from an evolutionary context, or you can look at it from a biblical context. The evolutionary context looks at the arrival of animals over time. The biblical context, we view the fossil record as burial during the time of the flood. And so we have the same data, it's just a difference in how you interpret the data. So there's not a problem with science and faith. The problem is how the science is interpreted. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's what's going on. If you interpret it according to an evolutionary context, you should see this. The fossils should increase in complexity. You start with the bacteria, and then you get a little bit bigger organism, then a little bit bigger organism, and then different phyla, and then more phyla as you go along. So the second thing up there, you should see a gradual increase in the number of different phyla over time. So y'all seen the tree that Darwin drew, and that was still in our minds today, that tree that just gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger up to the present time. And so that's the evolutionary context. And that last one, you should see transitional fossils all along the way as they transition from fish to amphibians or amphibians to reptiles along the way. You should see that. On the right side, if you took a biblical or young earth interpretation, the vertical order of fossils should reflect their habitat during the flood. And so, and they really do. Where they lived, whether they lived low in the ecosystem or whether they lived higher up in altitude. And then number two, the fossils of all the phyla should appear suddenly and fully formed, and you should find no intermediates or no transitions. Well, I've already showed you the picture. What do y'all see? All of the fossils appear suddenly, fully formed right at the Cambrian time period. Almost every animal phyla, most of the body plans we know of today appeared all at once. No intermediates leading up to them, and a whole bunch of phyla all at one time. That fits the biblical model rather than the evolutionary model. I tried to stretch out from the Cambrian time period on down, and I tried to let you know what's in the fossil record. It starting at the Cambrian time period. It's mainly marine organisms, those that lived at lower levels in the ecosystems, in the oceans, in the bottom of the oceans. And then as you come up the different layers, then it gradually, you'll get to vertebrates. There are some vertebrates in the Cambrian time period. The fish, the jawless fish are in the Cambrian time period. And then as you keep moving up, you gradually move to a little bit more terrestrial. And so that's just a bunch of writing. We're not going to look at all that. The lower layers are dominated by marine organisms. The higher layers show increasingly more terrestrial. And so as the waters came up on land, it's going to deposit those marine organisms on the land and bury them. And as the waters keep coming up, then it's going to bury the animals in different ecosystems. There's a theory out there called the ecological zonation theory, and it was done by a creationist, a geologist who's a creationist, and he said the order that you see the fossils in the fossil record represent the order that they were buried as the flood waters rose. And so the first ones that are going to be buried are those that are in shallow seas, and then the organisms next to the bodies of water, and then you start moving higher up on land, and on your picture up there, that'd be the reptiles. You start seeing them buried, and then mammals and birds at the top. So how you see the fossils matches how they lived in different ecosystems during the time of the flood. So it kind of makes sense to me. I hope it's making sense to you. So for evolution, they look at how the community changed over time, but with the biblical interpretation, you look at all the organisms that were living at the same time, just at different levels in the ecosystem. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's a matter of how you interpret the data, how it's being interpreted. So that's our problem. Here's the first organisms found in the fossil record, right at the Cambrian time period. That's what they look like. Those are organisms from the Burgess Shale. You can see up there at the top, the Burgess Shale in Canada. And look at them. They've got legs, they've got arms, they've got eyes. There is Morella. Look at all of its jointed legs that it's got. There is Opabenia. It's got 5 complete eyes. Opabenia does. There, along with that grasping claw that it's got out in the front. There's hallucigenia. That's a funny word to name something, but they can't tell if the top are legs or if the bottom are the legs. They just don't know which way it should go, up or down. That's Animalacarus. That's the largest one that they found. It's about 3 feet long, and it's got those teeth on that large mouth-looking structure at the front. So they think it was a predator in those first organisms that were there. So that's the first organisms found. Very complex with legs and eyes and systems, just really nice. Also, at the Cambrian time period in China, they found the exact same fossils. They all look the same, and y'all can see there, they're all looking the same as what they found up in Canada. But the difference is, in the layers they found them in China, all of these fossils had to appear in less than 10 million years. In evolutionary time, that's like a second. They just appeared suddenly in the fossil record. And the guy who researched these, he just says, well, this just shows they had to be created. They just had to be created. So that's just kind of fun that happened. So the Cambrian explosion at the Cambrian time period, almost half of the known animal phyla appear suddenly fully formed, and there's no intermediates leading up to those. So Darwinian explanations of mutation and natural selection, they can't explain that. They cannot explain that. So there's problems with all of that. So for most creationists, this is what we think. The time period from 4.6 billion years ago up to the Cambrian time period, that was probably all the land that was, when God said, let there be land, that's what he made right there. And then there were 1,500 years that man lived. And then from the Cambrian time period up to this says tertiary, now they call it the Neogene. So all of that was probably laid down in 1 year during the year of the flood. And that seems to be a better interpretation of the fossil record rather than over millions of years. Yeah, and that's another thing I probably should point out, and I didn't point it out. I don't have it anywhere else. I might as well say it right here. You got to look at their time, and when you look at a chart, the difference from that number to that number is 1 billion years. Did y'all see that? So that is 4 billion. That's 3 billion. That's 2 billion. 1 billion. But then from there all the way up is 1 billion years. So they stretch out the top part of that. Does that make sense? So if you want to look at it in reality, if time starts right here and here's the present time, the fossils start right here at 500 million years ago. Y'all see what I'm saying? So here's the beginning of the Earth. Here's the present day. Fossils start right here at 500 million years ago. So everything just appears suddenly. It's there. That represents the flood. It just makes more sense to me in all of that. This group, Illustra Media, they put out some really good videos. And one of their videos is Darwin's Dilemma. And they have different scientists talking about the fossil record and what science is actually saying about the fossil record cannot hold up. There's not enough evidence for it to hold up, and it's still Darwin's Dilemma. So that's really fun. Also, organisms living today, every vertebrate that we know of living today, 80% of them are already in the fossil record. So if 80% of what's living today is already in the fossil record, then we should see 80% of all the intermediates between groups in the fossil record. But we see none. We see no intermediates between any of these groups. That's been the problem for evolution for a long time, is no intermediates. So evolution decided they're going to find intermediates. So they did this in 2001. They've now got 2 lines of evidence say they've got intermediates from one group to another. Whale evolution. So we had mammals on land that went back into the ocean to form whales. So we now have all of those intermediates, and I'll show you what they've got on all that. And then dinosaurs to birds. Birds is no longer its own category. They moved it in to the reptile grouping, and even from dinosaurs. So from the T-Rex dinosaurs is where birds came from. So they're saying this right now. So let's take a look at it. This is just kind of fun. Back in 2006, Dr. Kenneth Miller, he is the author of the most used high school biology textbook. Texas Tech had him come to talk. Actually, he talked to a lot of universities all over the nation. He was going around in 2006 talking to all kinds of university students that Darwin still matters. He did that because back in the 1990s, intelligent design was starting to come up in biology and become a favorite in biology. So they decided we need somebody out there who's really connected to the world to talk about Darwin and evolution. So I graduated from Texas Tech. So I got a note in the mail saying, you got to come hear this guy. He's going to talk on Darwin Still Matters. Well, yes, I want to go hear him. So I went and heard him. It was at the pavilion at Texas Tech in a big room. There's at least 1,000 people there. They had all kinds of food, which was really, really nice. And so he got up, and his talk was not why Darwin still matters. His talk was 4 things that are wrong with intelligent design. And so the whole talk was against intelligent design. And so I'm thinking here, well, I wonder what he's going to say. This is going to be interesting tonight. So one of the things that he said was, and you can see it up there, he said, intelligent design claims no intermediates in the fossil record. But he said, we have found all the intermediates for whale evolution. And he put that picture up on the board. Everybody in the room started clapping and yelling and hollering, and it was just going out of wild. And they now have intermediates, is what they were saying with all of that. So I looked at that chart, and you know what I said? I said, that looks pretty good. It looks like they've got all the intermediates. So I've been doing this for many, many years. I've been in the evolution world for 10 years at this point. I read a lot of Philip Johnson's books at the law school in Berkeley in California. And in one of his books said, with evolution, you have to have a baloney detector. I have a good baloney detector. And so whenever I see something that looks really good, I write down the source. So I did. I wrote down the source. It was Carl Zimmer's book. I got this same picture and started looking these guys up and investigating. So we're talking about mammals going into the ocean to become whales, from terrestrial to aquatic. So that's what we're happening. And supposedly that happened from 55 to 30 million years ago. So I decided to go down the list and just look at each one and see what they found. The first one on the list is called Pakicetus. They named it that way. Cetus means whale. And they found these bones in the deserts of Pakistan. So why did they pick this dog animal in the deserts of Pakistan as the beginning of whale evolution? It's because in the bones they found at 55 million years ago, according to the geological timescale, they found these bones. There was an ear bone, a middle ear bone. And this is a quote. It's a folding in the bone of the middle ear and a positioning of the ear bone within the skull that's absent in other land mammals, but it's a signature of the Eocene whales. So this bone, there it is, it's got a little curve in it that whale bones have a little curve on. It's on the end of somebody's finger. Can you see the fingerprint? So it's a tiny little bone that has a curve in it. That's why this guy was picked as the beginning of whale evolution. Are y'all convinced? Yeah. There's the bones they found. I went to the actual sites of the people who found the bones, who are really big in evolution, Thowison and Gingrich are two of the big guys in whale evolution. So at Towason's website, that's the bones they find. But it's really interesting how they draw it. Do y'all see the artist rendition up there? That's what an artist thinks it looks like by looking at those bones. And so I said, okay, so Pakicetus is the first one. Let's go to the next one. Ambulocetus. There's what they found. This is also at Towason's website. So that's the one they found. But why did they pick this guy? It's because it's got an ankle bone. One of those ankle bones on the back leg, one of those ankle bones right there, that's got one hump on it instead of two hump. So there's a lot of ungulates, the deer, the camel, the pig, all of those. On their ankle bones, they have two humps on that bone, but the hippopotamus only has one hump. Ambulocetus only has one hump. So this is the next one in line for whale evolution because it's got one hump on that ankle bone, just like a hippopotamus. They're trying to relate whales to water. Hippopotamus spends times in water. So if you look at all of the flow charts today, whale is right there next to hippopotamus. So that's why they picked this guy, because of that one ankle bone. Are y'all okay with that? No, you're not. I'm not either. Okay, let's go to the next one. Delanistes, they only found a partial skull, some vertebra, and a femur. That's all they found. Part of a skull, a few backbones, and a femur. But look how they draw him. Isn't that interesting that they can draw that thing from just that? I sighed at this point and went on to the next one. Rhodocetus. Now, Rhodocetus is lots of fun. You notice I put a circle around his hind fins. Can y'all see those? Kinda? Shake your head. Yes. Okay. That's Rhodocetus. And look at his back fins. You got them? Okay. I went to Gingrich's website. Here's what they found. Y'all see the back legs? Those are walking legs. This is a dog. This is walking legs. But look up there at the top how they draw it. Isn't that interesting? Those are walking legs. At this point, I become very skeptical of what's going on in whale evolution. I just think that's really interesting. And that particular drawing that you see up there, the legs are a lot bigger than what you saw in the original drawing that was found in that book. And so it's a 10-foot long dog looking animal is what it is. So let's go to the next two. The next two, Tachycetus and Gavicetus. Tachycetus, they just found a skull with lower jaws, some cervicals, and an anterior thorax. That's all they found. The other one, they only found a skull, and I couldn't even find the pictures for that one. So those two, I don't even consider. Here recently, they've taken those two out anyway. Even paleontology doesn't think that's a very good idea. So those two we just kind of ignore and push to the side. So let's go to the next one, Duryodon. Here's what they found on Duryodon. Definite aquatic animal. Definite aquatic animal. So if we compare Rhodocetus with Duryodon, we took those two out between them. You go from that to that. Isn't that interesting? You go from a 10-foot dog. There we go. You go from this 10-foot dog to a 16-foot whale. Do y'all see a big gap there? Yeah, it's a big gap. At this point, I'm pretty sure they haven't got this thing figured out on whale evolution. That's how they show it. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? You'll never see the bones. You only see the artist rendition of what they think it should look like. And did you notice that Rhodocetus up there, that 10-foot long dog is swimming? It's just funny how they do this. And to me, that's deception. And then Basilosaurus is 50 feet long, huge, and it is just aquatic animal. So I took my pictures that I found and made my own chart on the left and compared it to their chart on the right. And do y'all see what I see? Dog, 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 whale, whale. It's just really clear. It's just really clear. I'm going to show you some recent things. This is Nature in 2001, but you can see it. Can y'all see it? Dog, 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 whale, whale. You see it there? Dog, 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 whale, whale. Even at the bottom, they write there, skeletons are not drawn to scale. They try to put them all the same size so that you will believe that it came through evolution. If they'd put it in the right size, you would see a 3-foot dog, a 10-foot dog, a 16-foot whale. It's just crazy how they do all that. It's a huge gap between Rhodocetus and Duryodon. And this is just the bones. Can you imagine all the internal stuff that has to change to go from land to in the water? You've got to change a lot of stuff in doing all that. And I think there's some deception in the way they draw things, pretty sure. These are the latest textbooks in our colleges. That's whale evolution. Do y'all notice it's right next to the hippopotamus? It is. It's right next to the hippopotamus. It's just funny to me. So, and you'll see it. Dog, dog, whale, whale. You see it? They got the dog swimming, but you can just see it. Dog, dog, whale, whale. This is Brooker's biology book. I use this one in my biology classes. You can see it. Dog, 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 whale, whale. Big gap right here. You see it? They draw all those dogs swimming. That's just really kind of funny that they do that. This is Freeman's biology book. Dog, 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 whale, whale. It's just obvious. So everywhere you see it, it's the same thing. So do they have intermediates? I'm thinking not. So let's go to dinosaurs to birds. 2 lines of evidence here that I'll show you. Archaeopteryx, that's a transition between dinosaurs and birds. They're targeting the T-Rex dinosaurs, the theropods. And then recent fossils in China that have the beginning of feathers. So let's take a look at those. Oh, I just saw this not too long ago. This is how they are drawing the phylogenetic tree. And so we start out here with an ancestor that's a dinosaur and then working the tree down, and there's birds down at the bottom of that tree. There you went the wrong way. There we go. I'm not really good at this, am I? There you go. See birds down there at the bottom right? That's where birds fall into line. I'll show you a little bit more about in a minute about what we're looking at. And then this one, this is 2020. This is their latest phylogenetic tree. And you'll see there on the orange down at the bottom, these are dinosaurs that are close to having powered flat feathers. And the ones that are green, they do have the potential to have powered flight feathers. And so you'll see this as we look at it on what's going on with this. But I read how they made up this chart. And what it does is the researchers, they decide what characters we're going to look at, the size of the head, the feather type, length of the feathers, or length of scales that turn into feathers. They decide what characters look like, and then they assign a number, a value to each of those characters, and then they make a formula using those numbers to decide if this dinosaur has the potential to have powered flight feathers. And so it's all subjective. It's all what the researcher wants to put in his formula to come up with the data. So to me, it's really subjective, and that creationists have done that as well, and we come up with something different, which is really kind of fun. So there's Archaeopteryx. On the left is what they find. That's the fossil. There's the actual fossil. You can definitely see the feathers on it. Those are true feathers. Ornithologists call an Archaeopteryx a true bird. The difference here on this bird is this, and I'll go back. You can see the artist rendition on the right. It's got teeth. That's a reptilian character. It's got claws on its wings. It's got claws. That could be reptilian. And it's got a really long tailbone. So it does have some reptilian characteristics to it. So to me, in the evolution world, would be an intermediate. That's the only one I have ever seen. But it's a true bird. It's a true flying bird. And so I read on birds from ornithologists, and they say, well, some birds have teeth, some don't. That's just not a big deal for them. The big thing about a bird is the hollow bones and the feathers and flight, fully flight. And so there you go. So it's really not an intermediate, but they're calling it an intermediate. So I'm okay with that. I wrote on there on Archaeopteryx, it had flat feathers like birds, but none of your dinosaurs have that. And it balances its weight over its knees like other birds, but not over its hips like the dinosaurs. So there's a lot of things that show that it's really not a dinosaur, it's a true bird. Okay, now let's look at these China dinosaur fossils that they found. These have the beginning of feathers. So I want you to know these pictures came out of the most used evolution textbook in universities today, and some from journal articles. Some of these pictures came from journal articles that are showing that. This is Sinoropteryx, and so you can read up there, this is their words, a dinosaur with bristly structures on the back, the flanks, and the neck, and the tail believed to be down like feathers. So I've got an arrow pointing to one of the, it's just a few lines right there. They say that's the beginning of feathers. Yeah. That's an actual fossil of a Sinoropteryx, and you can see those dark things on the neck and along the back. It's just lines, and that's the beginning of feathers, according to them. This is Caudipteryx. You can see up there at the top, that's the end of its tail. They say it is like feathery top tail. And then down at the bottom arrow, that smudging right there, it's a clump. They call that a clump of feathers. So that's the beginning of feathers in that dinosaur. And then Sinomythosaurus, they had little black arrows showing you where to look. So I put a big red arrow where they have a little black arrow so you could see where to look. So you can see there at the top, that's the beginning of feathers. You can see that smudging right there, that's the beginning of feathers. And that smudging, I knew I was going to do that. That smudging right there, that's the beginning of feathers. Are y'all convinced that these are feathers? I'm not either. I'm not convinced. A recent find, this is 2014. This is Colundra dromaeus. The picture on the left is what they found. The picture in the middle at the bottom, that's an artistic drawing. And they're saying it shows both scales and then feathers coming out of the scales. It's just lines coming out of the feather. Is that really a feather? Well, let's let National Geographic answer that for us. National Geographic had this article called Fluffy Dinosaur Raises Questions About the Origin of Dino Fuzz. They called it Dino Fuzz. And this is a quote from National Geographic. At a basic anatomical level, paleontologists have yet to discern whether the structures on Psittacosaurus or Tanulong or Colundra dromaeus can truly be called feathers. Even National Geographic, the most evolutionary journal or magazine there is, they're questioning this as well. Are those really the beginning of feathers? Yeah, this is a very subjective call. That's a feather. Y'all know what a feather looks like. Y'all zipped it up and unzipped it before. Y'all know what feathers are like. That's a wren feather, very complex. We're seeing nothing like that on these dinosaurs. And then here's another thing. You can see Archaeopteryx, it was found in strata at 150 million years ago, but all of these fossils that they find the beginning of feathers from 65 to 135 million years ago. So Archaeopteryx is in strata below where they've got these beginning of feathers up above. Isn't that interesting? So here's what they did. They took that group and moved it to the front and drew a line down and say, oh yeah, they lived all the way down here. We just hadn't found them yet. Can you do that? That's what they've done. That's what they've done. On the right, I put a note up there, Dr. Chatterjee at Tech. He found a true bird at 210 million years ago down by Post. So Archaeopteryx was at 150. He found one at 210 million years ago. So that's more of a problem for this. So do they have intermediates? To me, no. I just don't really think that. And are these really feathers, or are they collagen fibers? Are they really dinosaurs or birds? My point is, check out the data. Just check out the data to see what's there. Um, Stephen Meyer did this with the evolution of reptiles to mammals. So Kemp came out with the book, and that picture in the middle shows from the bottom, that's a reptile at the bottom, all the way up to the top, that is a mammal. So they're showing the evolution from reptiles to mammals in those skull bones. Well, Stephen Meyer, who's an intelligent design person he's probably the leader in the intelligent design group, he wrote a book, and in his book, he looked up those same fossils and what their actual sizes in relationship to each other. That's what's on the right. Isn't that interesting? That's how they present things. They don't really show you the true data. They just put things up there to make you think they've got it figured out. Well, when he came up with his lineup and showed the differences, all of the large ones they took out of the lineup the next year and reduced the lineup to about 5 or 6. Isn't that interesting how they can change so quickly when something is put into publish? So that's just really, really kind of fun. So I'm going to end with this. I've got 10 minutes before 12, so I'm going to finish here, so we'll be done. One of my good friends in the sciences believes in evolution. And I asked him, why do you believe in evolution? And he said, because of the reptile to mammal, the bones moving from the jaw up into the ear. And so I investigated this. It must be pretty convincing to convince him that evolution occurred. So I looked at it. So this is from a textbook. It says, the evolution of unique mammalian features can be traced in the fossil record. For example, mammal jaws and teeth evolved gradually over time in a series of steps. So let's take a look at those steps to see what they really actually found. This is what the book says, and I don't know if you can tell it or not. They show the tree at the top, but here's the first one, here's the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one. And so as we go through, you can see that there is a joint here, a hinge, where the lower jaw and the skull comes together. There's a hinge there made up of the articulate and the quadrate, which are the orange and the green colors that you can see right there. I don't know if y'all can see it really well from where you're at. And so that is the hinge for the jaw. The dentary is brown, which is the lower part of the jaw, and the squamosal is the purple one up above it. And so that's part of the skull. So with time, you can see the bones start moving, and then we get down to here in the late cynodots. We start over here at 300 million years ago. Now we're down at 220 million years ago. And you can see the orange and the green is still there, but we can also see the brown and the purple are coming together. And then at a late cynodont, the green and the orange are gone. And now the brown and the purple make a new hinge. And so the two bones, the quadrat and the articular, the green and the orange, they move from the jaw up into the ear, and now they're two of the 3 ear bones we've got. That's what they're saying happened with that. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy to me. So I'm thinking, did this really happen? And so I started investigating it. And this is kind of what I found. Look. then they become more mammal-like through the Permian and Triassic. I'm not moving away from you. And then the first real mammals appeared. And then the first mammals appear at the end of the Triassic period, which you can see pointed up there at the end of the Triassic period. But then mammals disappear for 100 million years. You don't see any mammals at all. You can find a few teeth, 2 handfuls of teeth, that's about all you can find. And then, all of a sudden, at the Cretaceous time period, 65 million years ago, that's when dinosaurs disappeared. We have hundreds of mammals just appeared, fully formed mammals. We've got all kinds of bats, whales, primates, hood-necked mammals, rodents, carnivores, monotremes. They all appear right there at 65 million years ago, and the reptiles disappeared. So somewhere in there, we had to switch from a reptile to a mammal. So there we go. Now, the main ones that they call the language of the reptile that was converted to mammals are Morgana and Cutnotarians. Are we back to the line?
Should be back.
Did you get batteries from me too?
Those come with a break.
There we go. So you can see Morganocodon and Cutnotarium, they're at the top of the reptile list. They both have the orange and green jaw bone working. They cannot find a reptile that doesn't have those. And you can read there at the bottom, we have thousands of reptile fossils, thousands of them. And they picked these certain ones, and we're not even sure they even live close to each other. But they picked these certain ones to show the head differences and how the bones maybe came together to make the jawbone. But they still had those 2 working hinges. Well, we have thousands of mammals, and all the mammals that we find have 3 ear bones. All the reptiles only have 1 ear bone. So somehow, and they can't explain it, these 2 bones moved up and changed what they look like and got connections to connect to the other ear bone. Now we've got 3 ear bones to where we can perfectly hear. They can't explain it. Can you explain that? Does it even make sense to you that that would have happened? No, doesn't make any sense at all to me. And then we mammals, we all have a cochlea that has that organ of Corti. Reptiles don't have an organ of Corti. That's how we really hear well. Reptiles don't have that. And so my question is, how did that happen? And those 2 bones change their configuration and move up and connect to make a perfect ear? Just doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense. And could he still hear during the whole process? Could he still chew during the whole process? I mean, we had to change joints. And we never see in a reptile the brown bone and the purple bone have any kind of connecting joint at all. So that would have to reform as well. What I'm saying is, this is all just a theory. It's just an idea of what happened. We don't know that. There's no way to even, hopefully, maybe genetics can help show us a little bit later on, but to me, it's just crazy. Does it sound crazy to you guys? Yeah, it's just crazy. One last thing. I've got less than a minute. I'm just going to show you. Gunter Beckley. He was a curator of a museum of natural history in Germany. When it came to be the 150th anniversary of Darwin's Origin of Species book, he wanted to have a big display in his museum in Germany. And so he got one of those scales, you know, one of those scales that has a long arm and it has 2 baskets hanging down, and you put more weight on this side, it's going to tip the scales. Y'all remember those scales? He had that set up at the entrance to his museum. And on this side, he put Darwin's book, The Origin of Species, that one book. On this side, he put 5, 10, 15 books of intelligent design. And he had the scales tipped like this. The Darwin's Origin of Theory has a lot more weight than all of these things on intelligent design. So he had a really good display set up. And then he got to thinking, well, you know, people's going to come in and they're going to ask me about what's in these books. So I better read these books and figure it out. So he read the books. And as he read the books, it started making sense to him. And by the time he read all the books, he didn't believe what he had set up there. So he took it down and he told the people, this is not true. He got fired. But he said, it just makes more sense that all this came by creation and the flood, and it just makes more sense. And so he is now speaking out against evolution. He's got a YouTube that is really good, and I got all this information from the YouTube. And so I'm just going to go to the end and just show you. And I went through every one of his groups, and my PowerPoints has everything on there. If y'all want to get them back there, you got them. And so all the red lines, and I'm using one of the trees from a science textbook. The tree, you can see they connect everything together on the tree in the textbooks. But all of these, according to Gunther Beckley, who's a really good person who knows the fossil record, he said these animals appeared and there's nothing to connect them to below there. There's no precursor leading up to that animal. We don't know where to connect it in the fossil record. And look how many there are. And look at who they are. You can just see them. There's cephalopods, there's jawed fish, there's arthropods, there's beetles, there's flying insects, flying reptiles, tetrapods, flowering plants. Tons of things in the fossil record that they don't know how to connect it. They just appear suddenly with new traits, and they don't know how they came to be. So are they being deceptive? Yes, they are. They're being deceptive in the fossil record. If you check it out, there's just too many problems with that fossil record. A better scenario may be the flood. They were all buried same time, but in different parts of the ecosystem. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, it's just fun to see all this happening. Okay, I am 1 minute past. No, 2 minutes fast, maybe 3. So, are we questions? We all right? Y'all are hungry. I know what y'all are. I am too. Yeah. Okay, we're done.